So as a reminder, we are in a completely organic aquaponics system, which means we are utilizing the waste generated by fish to fuel the organic growth of the plants that we are growing. And one of the treats that we give our fish here, these are tilapia, is, ooh, he's coming up. They're hungry. We give them duckweed. Now, duckweed is a waterborne plant that fish would naturally eat in the wild. And in this case, they'll go a little bonkers eating it. Now, you'll notice because it floats, this is something where the fish can come up, open their mouth, suck in the water, and then expel that water through their gills. And then they'll end up with the duckweed actually in their mouth. They'll then digest it. And again, because all this matter goes through the fish's system, they will then be, well, disposing of that extra waste, which then gets pumped into the grow beds, and the plants will benefit as a result. And yes, even though there's plenty of duckweed growing on the or floating on the water right now, these fish will take care of all of it. And let me just wash that off. Yeah. They're fishes. I like fish. Oh, wow, that looks like some really cool dirt, Mr. Headley. No, it's not dirt. This is ground up coconut husk, also called coir, C-O-I-R. And this is what we're actually going to be growing everything in. So the first thing I have to do is I have to get this coir wet enough so that it's going to stick together. Because the coconut fiber will actually soak up a lot of the water here, but then I have to do something with it. And I'm going to be using these bad boys. Well, maybe they're good boys, who knows, to actually do something with it. Now, I've got the water in the coconut. Sounds like a Harry Belafonte song, I know. But I've got to mix it up because this is bone dry. Like, wow, bone dry. This is ridiculously dry. And I'm going to need to mix this up a lot so that it's going to stick together when I actually put this in these baskets. So I'm going to need a lot more water. And if you've noticed, I'm putting the water in this trough that I've created on the backside here, so that essentially I'm building a mud of coconut coir, of coconut husk here. And it gets a chance to get soaked up here before running out onto the bottom of this blue tote here, this plastic tote. And you can tell there's a different smell in it right now that smells very earthy. I think it smells great, but you know, that's just me. And this is still really, really dry. I mean, it's getting better, but it's still really dry. All right, let's see how that does. Now, if you remember, I was talking about alkalinity earlier before. Alkalinity is a measure on the pH scale. So if you recall from biology, I should have had biology last year, and in biology, you probably talked about pH, where you determine whether something is acidic or basic based upon its pH. A neutral pH is 7, and that is pure water. Anything that is below 7 is acidic. Anything that is above 7 is basic. Right now, our pH is right around 9, which means that this water is alkaline. This water is basic. And that's not great. It's not horrible, but it's not great. So we actually need to deal with that on a frequent basis to make sure that we are getting the water as close to neutral as possible. Because, you know, when you secrete things through your excretory process, meaning urinate, you are actually secreting uric acid. And these fish are excreting a lot of uric acid on a regular basis. But even with that, it's still basic. So we're going to have to do some work here. Going to have to Make sure that we can keep this at a much better rate. Now, notice how much water this has soaked up, and it's gotten bigger. So it's absorbed a lot of the volume. This basket is plastic, food grade plastic. And all you're going to do, or all I'm going to do, fill it with coir. Because we have this damp coir now, this will actually stay in the basket. It will stay stuck together. And I can put my seeds in here and drop them into the raft, and I won't have any issues as far as this coir dropping out and the seed falling down. Now, coir is also a pH neutral substance, meaning it is neither acidic nor basic. And because of that, it is perfect for growing plants in, because it does not take on the characteristics of the liquids around it. So I am just going to keep filling these until I have them all done. You'll notice it is not a really clean process here. It gets very dirty very quickly, which is fun. I mean, it's like, hey, what are you doing? I'm playing in the mud. Ah, but it's not really mud. It's coir, which is cool. And right away, you can tell that this is different than what I started with because it is wet and it's sticking to my skin. It is sticking to itself, and that's exactly what we want. Now, because I am not sure when I am going to be able to get to this as far as the raft right away, I am going to put these, create a bed here, because I want to conserve as much of the moisture in this coir as possible. And if I leave it exposed, it is exposed to air, and air is naturally dry. So I'm going to pack it all in so I can still see where the cups are. And in this way, I have done my prep work. I know that I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have 15 cups in here, 15 baskets, and they are going to maintain their moisture until I am ready to put them in a raft. So here we have a raft that is empty, and this has, let's see, there's 5, there's 10, so it has 13 spots in it for baskets. Okay, all I need to do is put these in, just like that. And I now have an entire raft ready to plant. Now, I do need to do a quick check to make sure that the holes are not so big that the baskets will fall through. Check complete. Literally, it's that easy. Hey, what's that? That, ladies and gentlemen, is a depth gauge. Let me take my mask off. So, why do we need a depth gauge? Because I want to make sure that every seed that I put in this coir, in this wet coir, is at about the same level within the coir to make sure that it's similar. So I am going to first put 3 seeds on every top, on the top of each of these plastic baskets filled with coir. Why 3? Well, the germination rate probably is not at 100% for einkorn that is purchased in whole wheat berries. By the way, this is einkorn. This is the ancient grain that we're planting here. And the germination rate for wheat berries is not at 100% because these are 100% organic wheat berries. Yes, this is the seed, but it is not, this isn't a seed that is going to grow 100% every time. Oops, that's 4. Let's go to 3, Headley. There we go. And once I get it laid out so that I have seeds of 3, or groups of 3, however you wish to call it. I then am going to push them down into the coir with my handy-dandy depth gauge, aka pencil. And because this pencil is so old, like me, the eraser is completely useless. It is hard as a rock, which means I am not going to damage the eraser at all if I get it wet with coconut coir. Okay, so 10 or 5, 10, 13 times 3, I now have 39 different seeds that are here ready to be planted. So I take the handy dandy depth gauge and I am going to push it down so that it is flush. I'm not sure if you can see that. It is going to be flush with the top edge here of the gauge, so that it's going to be about a ½ inch deep. I'm not going to go any further than that because I want to make sure that each of these is at the same depth. And that way, I have a uniform planting depth for all of these seeds. And I'll be doing the exact same thing for each of the plantings that I am going to undertake with the 2 different seeds. Now you say, wait a minute, you said you're not going to go any deeper, and this one definitely went deeper. Well, that's because this one is a little higher for the coir. So I want to make sure that it is flush with the top of the plastic basket, because once we get these put into the coir here, I am then going to make a little bit of a mess again. Shocking, I know. What? Mr. Headley's going to make a mess in the coir? Yes, yes I am. Because I can. Dun dun dun. And by the way, if you had told me 20 years ago, or 25 years ago actually, when I first started teaching, that I would be doing something like this, I would have told you that you were absolutely fantasizing. There is no need for me to do things like this to actually pre-record lessons for students. I'm a history teacher. I won't be teaching anything about life sciences or science or research or biology or agriculture. No, I'm a history guy. Yeah, funny how things change as the years go by. I'm still a history guy, but I do get to do a lot more stuff now, and it's really fun. All right, so now that we have everything, thanks to our handy dandy depth gauge, taken care of, take the depth gauge out of the situation, put a cap on these seeds to keep them nice and airtight. Remember, einkorn. This is the ancient grain. And then, just going to put these over, plug up these holes with some coir. Maybe even take a little bit of coir from this, put it on top. Just a smidge. And just like that, we are ready for planting. So we're here at the first grow bed again. And you'll notice that I am not turning the grow lights off because I want these to get full exposure. Now, the breeze is already blowing because we have a fan set up on this end. And what I am going to do is I'm going to get some of this duckweed out of the way and quite gently just put some water just on the top. Because yes, these are damp and the coir is damp, but I want to make sure that any of these holes that were created with my handy dandy super high-tech depth gauge are going to be filled naturally with osmosis and natural gravity. So there's a reason and there's a method as far as why I'm putting it here. As I fill up more rafts, I'm going to build them out this way and get rid of the kale. So this one is practically empty anyway. That one's going to go. And once I have 6 rafts this way with einkorn, I'm going to remove the peppers and then have 6 more rafts here, or 5 more rafts, depending upon how many I can get, with more einkorn. This grow bed will be entirely einkorn. That grow bed will be entirely hard red wheat, so that we have a good comparison between the two. Now, today is March 17th, Wednesday, 2021, and it is St. Patrick's Day. Hey! And we have just planted the first batch of grass, of einkorn wheat. So let's see where this goes. So what really makes this a scientific process is the fact that we have all these measurements and all these continuous dials that we can access. And this is recorded 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we'll be able to access that data on a regular basis. Up here is pH. You'll notice it is currently at 8.9. That is fairly high alkalinity. Dissolved oxygen, 9.7 milligrams per liter. What is that? KH, I think. As far as 53 parts per million. CO2, carbon dioxide, 0.1 parts per million. Ammonia, NH4, none. Nitrous oxide, NO3, 1 milligram per liter. Conductivity, ORP, which is actually, we'll get into that later. The light is currently at 86 lux, which means we do have a light meter in here. Tank temperature, which is at 71. Room temperature, which is at 73. And water flow, which currently is not being measured. All this data we're going to have access to so that you'll be able to include this in your report and in your analysis. But that's where we are right now. So we have started this process of growing einkorn wheat and hard red wheat in the other grow beds. What are we going to put in these grow beds? Who knows? Maybe we'll start planting lettuce. Maybe we'll be looking at flowers. I don't know. The possibilities are endless. And this could be something that we're going to take on as a part of the research process in the class. We'll see. I'll let you know.